Hello, folks, and welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. We switched our licensed music provider, and I cannot get the new website to work, so we do not have intro music today. Thanks a lot, guys. No, we'll get it figured out. But Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, wherever you listen throughout the world, thank you very much for listening to us. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. And if you want to listen to that regularly, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but you got to subscribe. If you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one right now, and that means we are live on YouTube, the A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers channel on YouTube. Subscribe there, but you got to hit that notification bell, because then you'll be notified when we go live, and you can come here, hang out with us, comment on the show, have a ton of fun. It's always great. So go do all that at Charlie_Burris, at Zach TT, at ADZ Sports, Facebook.com/ADZ Sports Nashville, and ADZSports.com for everything that Zach writes on the internet. Okay. It's little awkward without any music transition here, but we will get there. Zach, a week passed since we talked last, and we kind of left off sort of pie in the sky. Just, I hope Tennessee baseball gets better. Hopefully the postseason propels them to do something new. Well, it did for 2 games, and then it didn't. Big time didn't against Vandy. We're going to have to talk about that. What's up, man?
And you wanted Vandy. You got the wish, and then
I did.
Totally got let down. But there was a lot of good stuff before that I'm sure we'll get into, and some reasons that I think that game played out the way it did, and why we shouldn't panic over that game. I still come out of that SEC tournament pretty optimistic moving forward, and it should be a fun weekend in the Knoxville regional. Plenty of good storylines that are coming up with the draw that Tennessee got.
Yeah, I think you can't draw too much out of that Vandy game. I get probably my biggest take, if I'm going to be an alarmist at all, is to say it's concerning that this team can have a game that bad at all. That's not great, for sure, no. But also, it's great that they can have a game as good as they had against Texas. So you kind of in back-to-back days, or I guess it was a Thursday and a Saturday, you saw really the power of this team. They can go and they can beat Texas, and they can hit all around the yard. 20 hits against Alabama, and against a small ball team that runs all over them, they could get run ruled in 7 innings. So, ceiling, floor, we've seen it all. And last week, we're going to discuss all that tonight on the Big Orange Podcast. And then also, big recruiting weekend for football, 865 Live. And going to discuss that too, even though am I wrong? It's kind of like a lack of excitement at all around recruiting. And I don't mean that just for Tennessee. I mean that just kind of in general.
I
saw the same.
Yeah, I do. And I saw somebody on social media, on Twitter, I think, maybe, whatever it was. Somebody kind of made the comment. It's like, with the transfer portal now, these recruiting weekends don't seem like they mean nearly as much.
Right.
These guys never even you get them, and then they don't finish with you, right? And they reach their potential somewhere else when they're sophomores and juniors and seniors. So, I'd get some of that. But there's still that little bit of excitement when you land like a big 5-star, or you get a flip from another SEC program that's still there. But it's definitely not quite the same as it used to be.
I used to always say, I've never been the biggest recruiting guy. I mean, I follow it closely because you have to with this sort of stuff. But even when I was doing radio, my general take was that's great that Tennessee got whatever 4-star. That's cool. But until they show up here and I see them play a snap in a SEC football game,
there's a Drew Richmond or a Dontavius Blair or JJ Peterson. I mean, there's too many of those that you have to watch out for.
JJ Peterson. I wonder where he is now.
No idea.
the best recruit Tennessee never had. I mean, I'm told he showed up. I believe I was there the day he did show up, supposedly. or at least one of them, the first few. But I'm not sure I ever saw him with my own
You,
two
you
eyes.
know another one I was really excited about real quick, and this isn't. Yeah, his dad was a legend at Tennessee, but I remember I was on vacation and I'd like pre-written the article and all that. This is like a decade ago, over a decade ago. Dylan Bates, I thought that guy was going to
Oh
be a
man,
great player for Tennessee. I think he played some
yep.
special teams, and it just football wasn't his lane. I mean, it was, but not in the sense of being a pro, superstar type player. But that was one that I was dead set that guy was going to be good, and he just really didn't become a big contributor for Tennessee.
Yeah, obviously there's been a ton of guys
Yeah,
like that, but I was gonna say my old take used to be, oh, show up and play an SEC football game. We'll see where we're at. I'm happy. This is cool. The potential here is awesome. Maybe you'll be a Trey Smith. Maybe you'll be a JJ Peterson. But now my take is really, I gotta see you stay more than 1 year to believe it. That's
or week to
cool.
week in some cases.
I genuinely, I gotta see you get through a season and then show up for the bowl game. I guess
Yeah,
I gotta be scared that you're gonna freaking walk out or whatever is happening. It's Man, it's absolutely crazy, and frankly, it's a shame because uh, maybe these times weren't as good as I remember them in my brain, and it probably was good times because I was in college or was still younger than I am now. Didn't have as many responsibilities of the world on me. But I just remember like early signing day, we would go to place where a radio show is happening and go hang out and see if this recruit would choose Tennessee and like hang on everything that happened. Those were great times, and all of that is completely gone, just fully blown up. And man, it is a shame. Although the transfer portal is nice for building talent quickly.
yeah.
So 6 of one, half dozen of the other, baby. But okay, we can we can dwell on that stuff all day long. Let's talk. We'll get into the recruiting. We'll get maybe let's talk a little bit about that lawsuit with Kai Ziegler. Can you get a 5th year? Maybe that can be the final thing we talk about for basketball. But we gotta talk about Tennessee baseball's regional. They did actually play themselves into a regional, which is great, and we will discuss it right after I tell you about VIP Play. We have been filling you in on VIP Play. They are live in Tennessee. I've already told you, downloaded the app. It looks great. It's, the layout is right up there with the big boys. 200 plus leagues that you can wager on with all of your favorite bet types. They have the VIP Players Club sweepstakes, where every bet you make on VIP Play gets you entries into the sweepstakes. And then you have you can bet assured in Tennessee with the VIP guarantee. With VIP Play, everyone plays like a VIP, and that includes 24/7 customer service from real people and earning entries with that Players Club sweepstakes with every bet. And when you sign up with code A2ZTN, that is ATOZTN, you can claim your VIP Play welcome bonus. When you make your first bet of $5 or more, you'll get $100 in bonus bets instantly. That is ATOZTN, and claim that welcome bonus. Go download it right now, VIPPlayApp.com, VIPPlayApp.com, or search the VIP Play app on the App Store. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 or older, located in Tennessee to bet. VIP Play, code A2ZTN. Go download. Okay. Tennessee baseball goes into the SEC tournament, and we were kind of hoping against hope. I mean, that just the season ended sort of on a sputter with a loss in Fayetteville. Lost your final 2 games there after sort of miraculously winning the opener. We kind of discussed there were signs that Tennessee was coming around in certain areas. They're hitting the ball better. And Marcus Phillips had a great outing in Fayetteville. And Liam Doyle, on the other hand, had kind of been going down, but it was related to a blister that it seems like he just kind of needs to get healed. And they go into the SEC tournament with sort of this grab bag of different things. Could be great, could be rough. And they just beat the life out of Alabama, 20 hits, and they smack them around. And that was fun. That was a great game. Now, at the same time, this gets forgotten just because of how well that game ended. But Tennessee had a 5-1 lead in that game. Alabama makes it 5-2, and then Dean Curley makes a no. Sorry, it wasn't Dean Curley. It was it was. Sorry.
The throw?
I'm confused. The throw.
Yeah.
It was a routine ground ball with Dean Curley, and just airballs it to first base. Alabama goes on to take the lead 6-5, and then you go on to smash them later. Then in that Texas game, Alabama fun. The Texas game, you come in, you get down 4-0. Oh, God. We stink again. That's terrible. Then Tennessee comes back 5-4, hitting the ball really nicely. Brandon Arvidsson comes in, is playing absolute hero ball on the mound. He was incredible. And then what I almost referenced just a second ago, he airmails a ball to first base. Texas scores very quickly off of that. And that was maybe the sickest I have been all season, because he was putting on a legendary performance up there. And he just went, no, not like this. How this is the story of this baseball team right here. Great performance. You were loving it. Oh my gosh, Brandon Arvidsson playing right at the right time. This is incredible. And even then, he makes a play that blows your entire deal up, and you're sick about it. But then, thankfully, Gavin Keelan comes in, saves the day for you
twice.
And so yeah, that's true. Twice he hits a home run to make it 5-4, and then Texas comes back and scores the way they did, and they tie it. And then Keelan again, huge hit. Tennessee scores 2. They win 7-5. It was really great. I felt pretty good, because I said on the show in the last couple of weeks, this team is a Gavin Keelan heater away from doing things. And that you can see the proof of that right there. This team has so clearly made let's put this up. Did I crap out?
No, you're good.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
You good? Okay. Sorry. I got like a loading screen on here for a second.
There was a slight glitch, but you're back.
Okay. Well, we're good now. So I said, they're a Gavin Keelan heater away from doing something here. And it's not that simple, but they have all season not had the, all right, I'm putting this team on my back guy. And finally, he emerged in those extra innings against Texas, where he went, yes, somebody is taking this thing by the horns. Pun intended, I guess, as far as the Texas game goes. Finally, somebody's doing it. And then they go into Vandy, don't even score a run. Vandy plays their stupid, steal a bunch of bases, small ball nonsense. They played all the way to an SEC championship. They won the championship.
Didn't they have was it 13 singles against Tennessee is what they had, I believe, that they said?
They didn't have.
That was it.
If I'm thinking correctly, they didn't have extra base hits.
Right. Yeah.
They had 0.
That's.
Oh, God. And in reality, of course, they did have extra base hits, because they would get a single and then end up at third base, because that's what happens. And this was against Tegan Coons. This wasn't even Marcus, who has gotten run on so much all season. Now maybe he's improved that, and this is going to be a factor when we talk about this regional. Let's say, I really hope he's improved that. He really showed it in Fayetteville and against Alabama. I mean, Alabama's not super prone to run, but still, I like a lot of the things that Tennessee is doing right now. But at the end of the day, these fatal mistakes that they make are just crazy. And then they can have these games where the wheels completely fall off. That's scary. If you have that game against Cincinnati, Wake Forest in this regional, I mean, Lordy, you're going home. Well, you're staying home, I guess, in that case. I mean, the potential is there. How are you feeling at the moment, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic, because you the way you beat Texas and that game, everything that came with it is huge, right? Like the adversity, we're sitting there watching that game, and when Arvidsson, it was a shame that he was the guy that kind of made the error there that let Texas tie the game, because you're really not in that game probably if not for what he comes in and does those last several innings. He was pitching so well, and there was just no need for that play. I mean, the guy wasn't taking a big lead at the time. It was like he just wanted to step off and kind of reset and go through his pitches and decide what he was going to throw there, or the staff, whatever. There seemed to be some not on the same page. You see that a lot. Just step off, kind of a lazy throw over. It's not really to accomplish anything. It's kind of give yourself a second. Just step off in that situation if that's what you're going to do. You weren't going to pick the guy off. Obviously, it wasn't a good move. You weren't trying to pick him off, and those are usually when those mistakes happen, because it's taking you out of your normal mechanics of that play and what you're doing. So it's just unnecessary. And it's like those things that Tennessee keeps doing. You know, Dean Curley, like I don't believe his fielding issues are ability so much as just his headspace and the things that he's doing, like the throw against Alabama that and they end up taking the lead on. He fields that ball. It was a sharply hit ball. He fields it well, and he just throws the ball before your first baseman is over there and turned around. Like, I know it's different playing second than shortstop because they got more time to get over there, you know, when the ball's hit to the shortstop. So by the time you throw it, the first baseman's usually going to be there. Second, often you kind of got to pace yourself and wait a half a second longer just to give him time. But he's played it enough coming up through the years, I'm sure, that you know that, right? You know the situation. He just rushed it. And it's things like that that can get this Tennessee team in trouble, because, again, the regional play, that might be what costs you the game. I mean, right? Like I know they've overcome some of that stuff before in the past, but this team hasn't done it often enough. But, you know, the fact that they did it against Texas is encouraging. To come back like that, I mean, that was a vintage classic Tony Vitello type win. That's something we've seen from his teams in the past, back when they would be down 3 runs going into the ninth inning, and we were like, I feel pretty good here. Like, there's a good chance they're going to come back and win this game, and it just haven't had that feeling that often this season. And it wasn't that exact scenario necessarily that happened against Texas, but it got to a point where it felt like they were going to lose that game for sure. Like, I was like, they're going to get walked off, you know. And
I mean,
that's a huge step for them, I think.
To the point on Curley, that one in the Vandy game was probably worse, where he tossed it from his glove, over to first, and it just was, I mean, just a ridiculous, like, horrible play. I mean, I get it. You're trying to make the efficient, you know, just tossing it straight from the glove, but it is tough walking into this postseason and thinking a simple routine ground ball doesn't exist for this team. Like, that's not great. Where it could just be, oh, it's you. Some of these pitchers that Tennessee has, they played a contact. They pitched a contact. And that's fine. But you got to have guys that can field the baseball when they pitch to contact. Like, it has to be both things. And even last year, with as incredible as that team was, they weren't amazing fielding the baseball. They could just always out hit it. It was absolutely crazy. But you don't have anything like that this year. I mean, if Fisher and Keelan go off in the same game and you add in, you know, Inslee having something, okay, they could maybe get up there with last year's team in terms of hitting. You saw it against Alabama. But outside of just a total heater game like that, you're not out hitting these mistakes like that. And so they simply can't happen. You got to get locked in there because, yeah, Curley's iffy on covering second. And then Keelan is, he's playing shortstop because he's your best hitter.
Yeah.
And he wasn't born to play shortstop. I would put it that way. He did have a really good double play in the Texas game, right? So, you know, there's something there.
Yeah, but people get too forced into that position. I think fielding across the board is not great in college. I mean, you have some guys that stand out, but and I think it all starts at the youth level. I think there's so much focus on hitting. I don't think fielding gets nearly the time it deserves. And ultimately, to get to the next level, you've got to be able to do that if you're a player, because they're not going to stick you out there in the middle of the infield unless you can make pretty much any play that your glove gets to. And even some that nobody else thinks you should be able to get to, you got to make those plays. And That's why Curley's pro potential. I'm not sure where he ends up. He's probably going to be an outfielder, I would guess, at
Left
the next
field.
level because the bat can play, but and even with Keelan, maybe he's a second baseman, the next level. Who knows? But those are things that just don't seem to get the detail that they deserve. And it's gonna like those little details though, that controlling the running game that we've talked about a lot, like those are all things that they're going to have to do because they don't have those bats the way that they have in the past, like you mentioned. Like they're gonna have to take care of those small details because the margin for error just isn't there like it's been in the past. And yeah, that's the thing with this team that you just don't know how these games are going to play out. Like if it all plays out perfectly, then they've got the team that can go do it. But do they make mistakes? Does Liam Doyle get straightened out?
Yeah.
He's had 2 starts in a row now too. Like you need that guy to shove in postseason play to get to a super regional, and then obviously to get beyond a super regional. Whatever game he starts, if you make it that far, you cannot lose that game. So you got to figure out something there. Vitello didn't seem too concerned about it, but I mean, what's he going to say? He's never going to say that publicly. I don't think in that situation, concerned about your ace, that just gives other teams kind of blood in the water type deal. But those are the main things I'm concerned about.
And Vitello has specifically put this team together to play like all of his teams have played in the last 4 years, which is, I mean, we'll get run on a little bit. We'll make some fielding mistakes, and we're going to score 10 runs, and so we'll win the baseball game. Like that's just kind of how he's built these baseball teams to be power.
It won him a championship, so I mean, it
did.
I'm not hating on it.
It is literally at this point an unimpeachable system, even if it's not working that great. The proof is in the pudding. Multiple SEC championships, a national championship. The man has won everything you can possibly win with the way he sets up his baseball teams. So there's that. But when the power hitting is not there, all you see is just glaring fielding mistakes, and the fact that your pitcher is not absolutely perfect. Your pitcher is never going to be perfect. Like that's not. Paul Skeens is a generational guy. That is not going to happen almost ever for you. And Doyle is as close as I think Vitello's probably had. I mean, he's had some really good guys over the years, but Doyle can be really, really excellent. But you shouldn't have to just hang on every single pitch the guy has because you can't score any runs.
Yeah.
Or you screw up the fielding or whatever it might be. And it's especially tough because Curley, in no way do I mean to berate the guy at all. He's just made the big plays that have been screw ups. I mean, he was a really important piece on your national championship team. Played shortstop for a national championship. But really, that's the part that makes me cringe so hard when a ball comes his way is because he's a head case.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not the ability. He has the ability, but that is definitely a mental thing.
Yes. Because, I mean, you watch the man play shortstop for a national championship team. You know that he has it in there, but then he has a routine play that he's getting squirrely on, and he screws it up. And you can't just go like, oh, well, keep him there. He'll get better. Keep him there, and he might keep making mistakes is what I see. And so that's tough. But I say all of that, and my conclusion still is walking away from the SEC tournament. You made the semifinal. That was great. You played your way into a regional, and we're going to talk about that in a second. My thought is you are showing signs of life, and that is what you need right now. Like so badly, you need to be coming to life right now at the right time, and they did for 2 games, and then we saw them hit that floor again against Vandy. So which one will we get in this regional?
I think that Vandy game too. Like one, you're not going to have many teams that hit 13 singles that just the ball finds that much grass. Like that's pretty rare. Batting average on balls in play. There's some really good luck by Vandy, or not luck, just good fortune, I guess you'd say. Also, too, I think there was a bit of a letdown after that really emotional Texas game and the way that game was won. This version of Tennessee hasn't been in a ton of games like that. Like they've had a few, the Auburn game, but throughout the season, it's been, kind of the opposite, right? Where they've been losing those close games. And I think to win that game and Texas being the top overall seed in the tournament, I think there was just a little bit of a letdown there. And the game ended up getting pushed up earlier in the day. And I don't know if that had an impact. It can. I've seen my kid play on hundreds of baseball games and throughout his teenage years now, and there's always a game early in the morning where one team just looks completely dead and the other team doesn't. You're like,
Yeah.
how does this happen? Like, it's the same, they're the same age kids, and for no rhyme or reason, sometimes that just ends up being the case. I don't want to make excuses for them, but I also am not panicking because of that one game. I think that was a bit of an outlier.
I think just what I see is an extremely talented team that just cannot get the vibes right. We've talked about that so much on here. But the vibes above all for college baseball, and they just can't thread that needle where things just meet up. And I think a big piece of it is what I mentioned before. They don't have that put the team on the back guy that can drag them across the finish line. It feels like it should be Andrew Fisher with how good he's been at the plate. And it just, for some reason, it's just not. I mean, probably because he's just a transfer who's been here for a short time.
I think he's got personality. He's a vibes guy, but he's not the Christian Moore type guy, right? And that's not a knock at all on Andrew Fisher. I think that guy is a big league hitter and has a lot of baseball in front of him. Everybody kind of has their own role on a team. That's what makes it work, right? Like, you can't have 9 Christian Moores on a team. It's probably not going to work. There's just not that room for that many alphas on a team, right? Like, it's weird the way baseball team chemistry works. So I think Fisher is playing the role he's kind of born to play. I just don't think they have that other guy that can step up and fill that Christian Moore role. And that's tough. I mean, that dude is a unicorn type player. They don't make many guys like him, just as far as ability and the fact that it seemed like no moment was ever too big for him. It doesn't mean that he came through every single time, because it's baseball. You're not going to, but man, you believed he was going to, and he made others believe that they were going to, and that's kind of what you need.
You had a guy who could have already been playing in the big leagues in your lineup last year.
Yeah.
And that's not replaceable. And on top of that, he was an excellent leader. And on top of that, you had Blake Burke, who is one of the most powerful bats in America. And on top of that, you had Hunter Inslee, Mr. Clutch. And on top,
yeah.
You can
and
go
Moore
down
wasn't
list.
a perfect player either.
Dylan Dreiling.
Moore had some fielding snafus as well, at times too. It's not like he was a perfect player, but just I feel like he made everybody more confident on that team somehow, some way.
Yes, but whatever it was, he provided belief where it just feels like these guys make these fielding mistakes, and then they go, "Oh man, we got to hit our way out of this," and then they start pressing.
Yeah,
and then it's just a compounding problem on both sides, where we screwed up on defense, and then we're going to keep screwing up because it's in our head. We're behind. We got to press at the plate, and that it's a bad formula, and they don't
never going to win that way.
No, but that was why I was so encouraged with that Texas game. They go down 4-0, and we were texting. We were like, well, we're back, right back to where we were. In no way did I expect them to recover the way they did and come all the way back and kind of have that fight and that grit and that heart, because they just haven't showed that this year. And you have to have that to win this thing. Just look at what they did last year. You have to. Came from behind in Game 2 of the College World Series. Obviously, one of the greatest comebacks of all time in the opening game of the College World Series. Game 2 of the College World Series final, and then the first game of the College World Series, period. One of the craziest comebacks you will ever witness in your life. And Tennessee would lose that Florida State game 12-4. Like that would be the final score of that game this year. So that's where you sit. Now let's talk about this regional. Eric says, how do we feel about the regional? Wake Forest is scary. Lowell says Vols by 50. I certainly hope so. But then Eric follows that up and says, I don't see signs of life. Liam has had 2 bad games in a row. The bats aren't there. Infield mistakes. Eric, didn't know anyone on this show would be considered more negative than me, but you nailed it. So Wake Forest coming in, Cincinnati coming in, Miami of Ohio, not a pushover. Coming out of the MAC, right? And that's your regional. Then, if they can actually win a regional, you will play at Arkansas in the next round. Because, of course, you had to know they were going to do some nonsense like that because it's Tennessee. They did it last year with Wake Forest, but Wake Forest ended up screwing the pooch. And now, and maybe Arkansas will screw the pooch, and you could be hosting a super regional here in a few days. So we'll see. How do you feel about this this regional, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about Miami, but these games can all be tough. I mean, we've seen that in the past. You needed a walk-off grand slam to beat Wright State, 21. So you never really know what these games are going to be like, but Tennessee can beat all of these teams. Wake hasn't had the magic, I don't think, since that 23 season. They've had talent, but they were preseason number 1 last season, and they quickly lost quite a few games. I don't, yes, they could get hot, and they have some bats. They have a really good shortstop in Merrick Houston. They have some good talent, but you just got to go beat them. I'm not. It's really hard to have much more takeaway than that. Like you got to go play your game and hope that you hit. Just kind of like throughout this whole series. Cincinnati to me is the one I'm most worried about because of the way they play, and we've talked about this, before the show and off air, but. They run a lot. They put pressure on you. They make you make defensive plays. If they get on base, they're going to try to steal. They're going to try to make you make mistakes. They're going to take extra bases. And that's, like we've talked about the last few minutes, that's where Tennessee has struggled. So,
yeah,
got to pitch really well against them and keep them off the bases. And then you got to play smart baseball and not, if you do make a mistake, which is probably going to happen, because it's baseball and the way this team is played, like you mentioned a bit ago, you cannot let that just, compound into even more mistakes. You can't try to get that one run back. Like you just got to go take it pitch by pitch and see what happens and play your game. And, hopefully you come out on the right side of it. But that Cincinnati, the potential matchup with them is the one I think I'm most concerned about just because it's not the best matchup play style wise for Tennessee based on what we've seen from Tennessee this season. Certainly they could go blow them out, if they pitch well and hold them off the bases, but they get a lot of traffic. There could be a lot of unearned runs in that game.
Yeah, I feel very similarly. Wake Forest plays a similar type of baseball to you, and you have more talent.
Yeah,
I would feel decently about that matchup. Nothing for this team has come easy all year. It is what it is, but I feel okay about that one. But Cincinnati, they. I texted somebody today after kind of doing some research on them, and I was like, "These guys sound like Big 12 Vandy."
They have a really good shortstop too. Their shortstop is a Big 12 Player of the Year, and for some reason they're eager. They want to play Tennessee because their pitching coach from last season is on Tennessee's staff now, Josh Reynolds, and they're all talking. Not really. They're not talking trash. They're just like, yeah, like we want to go play Tennessee. Like they're eager. They want that game. So you kind of got that little thing we've talked about before in the past of teams get up to play Tennessee. And, they're not, I don't think they're intimidated by the fact that these are the defending national champs.
Eric defending himself after I said he was being negative. Said, we haven't won a series in a hot minute. It's hard to see positives. Pitching depth is what won it for us last year. We don't have that now. We're young. I get it. Eric, I didn't say you're wrong.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
I just said you're being a Debbie Downer.
Definitely not wrong.
I will say about the pitching. If, and this is a big ol' if, because it really involves 3 things happening. 1, if Liam Doyle can get back to being himself from the blister and all that stuff. Excellent.
Which I do think with that, real quick, I think it helps that you're playing guys that you're out of conference teams, right? Like SEC,
yeah.
you know Doyle, right? He's at Ole Miss. You know who this guy is. So I think that helps a little.
Yes. Second is if AJ Russell can play like he did in the SEC tournament. Extremely encouraging with 70-plus pitches.
Yeah, that's huge.
And you didn't see a big drop-off from him even when he got taken out. I mean, it was real shades of his former self. So that's a big if too. And if Brandon Arvidsson can bring the heat that he did in that Texas game, that's pitching depth. I mean, that's real. And
And having that
I
lefty that
would,
could come in is what, Kirby Cannell is, even though he wasn't
yeah,
an elite
exactly.
arm, man, he was huge for you last year.
That soft tossing lefty that Kirby came in and was a juxtaposition to your high heat guys was so valuable. So if Arvidsson could continue that, I mean, I'll add to that if Tegan Kuhns can get back to the better play that he had earlier in the season. Kind of the same with Braden Krenzel. He hasn't been the same since he got whatever sickness, and just all those things. You have the pieces there that if they all play at the top end of their ability, you have a serious bullpen, a really serious bullpen that can cover 3 days actually now. Because if I don't know if Tony will do this, because he's been a guy who last year we watched him stick with Stamos and Causey and that whole weird setup, even
It
though
worked. It worked.
I
I
mean, what
mean,
national championship? What are you gonna do?
yeah, they did have some hiccups, but they won the
They
championship.
did. But and let's mention Nate Snead too. Nate Snead coming through in that Texas game. I mean, I was cringing so hard, just going, "Oh man, you have such an opportunity," and Nate Snead has been blowing it lately. And he comes in, looks really solid, and really just closed the thing out. Really had no trouble. And that it was great. Was not just throwing strikes. The man can throw strikes a plenty, but some of his strikes can get mashed. And in this one, he was pitching strikeouts, which was really nice. So, I mean, if you put all of that together, the bullpen is pretty serious across 3 days. And what I was going to say, I wonder if AJ Russell becomes your third day starter. But again, Tony's been a habits guy. Hey, Tegan's been doing it for a lot this season. Let's just keep him there. I doubt he does that, but it just feels like if you went Liam, Marcus, AJ Russell, like that's a really nice 3-day lineup if AJ's pitching right.
Yeah, and I've wondered that too, but I tend to think like what you said about Vitello, him kind of sticking with what works and will be a factor, and I think that might be the right idea. I mean, you never know until after the fact, right? But baseball can be so weird. Like guys hit ninth and mash, and then you move them up to fifth in the order, and all of a sudden it's like they got pressure. They gotta produce, and their whole mindset changes. I mean, and we've seen plenty of pitchers like that in baseball over the years. I mean, guys that just pitch better in certain situations, guys that have bad first innings and they settle in, and guys that come in with runners on base and they're terrible, guys that come in with runners on base and they're great. I mean, it's such a weird sport in general. And if Russell is thriving in this role, you're going to need somebody in that role at some point. You're going to need somebody to pitch the 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever innings, a couple of innings there in late relief. Like you're just going to need that. So if he's working in those situations, why not just stick with it and try to figure out your third starter, some other avenue. I don't know. There's never really a right answer, because if it blows up, everybody's gonna say, well, why did you do this? And you never know until you know. But I think just kind of sticking with the role he's comfortable in, especially with him coming off the injury and working his way back. And you really don't know where he's at. Like, how did he recover after those 70 pitches? We don't know yet. I think he'll be fine. I'm not trying to sound an alarm or anything, but you got to see how he recovers from that, and I'm sure that will dictate some of the plan there. But it's tough. I mean, that's one of the toughest things about this time of year as a baseball coach is in college, is managing your pitching staff and figuring out when to use guys, how much to use them, and pushing the right buttons. And the manager that guesses right is usually the one that last one standing type deal.
Of course. Well, beyond the regional, let's say Tennessee makes it through. I mean, there's even more to talk about, because like Tony is saying that he's going to throw Liam against Miami. And
I will say you cannot take any game for granted. You got to go win games. So,
could it be good to get him in there and maybe get his confidence up even?
Yeah, the one thing there is the Cincinnati. If you play Cincinnati, if they beat Wake Forest and you win, or if you both lose, think worst case scenario is somehow you lose with Doyle on the mound, and then you got to throw Phillips against Cincinnati if they lose to Wake, and that's a
And they run
nightmare
all over you.
scenario. So that's why I think you've got to go because they're going to run. Period. Even if it's Phillips is obviously the worst at holding runners, but they're gonna play their game no matter who Tennessee throws out there. So if you play Cincinnati, it's going to be a headache of a matchup no matter who's out there. I think you've got to go try to get that first game. Give yourself a little bit of room for error the rest of the weekend. So I know there's been some debate about that, but I can see the logic there.
Yeah. I mean, and Miami, they have an ace who actually was on Indiana's team when Indiana came to Knoxville last year. I don't think he played. But he's been one of the best dudes in the mid majors, and they're going to throw him against you. So yeah, you can't take any game for granted there at all. But I will say this about the regional: you are better than all of these teams, despite your flaws. Despite the flaws, Tennessee is better than all of these teams.
Yeah, you're hosting for a reason, and you deserve to host.
Right.
Tennessee didn't get that. This wasn't a gift; like they earned it, especially with winning those 2 games in the SEC tournament. It's the whole season what they've done, and they deserve the host. They are the best team in this thing.
And finally, use your home advantage, please.
Yeah,
It has been so. It's almost like there's too much pressure playing in front of that home crowd, or something where they're like, "Oh, we got to win in Knoxville," and then because of that, they screw up and they lose. Calm down. Win the game. You'll be fine. So Tennessee should come out of this regional. If they don't, obviously we'll talk about it and it'll be sad. But we'll cross that bridge if it comes. But if you move on, you'll play in Fayetteville.
maybe.
And that's true. Maybe.
I think they will play in Fayetteville. I don't think Arkansas will lose.
That would obviously be the most likely outcome. And I feel similarly in this situation to the way that I did when Kentucky was on the list for the NCAA basketball tournament. I feel the same way as I did this past weekend when you could play Vandy in the semifinal. Vandy kicked your butt. That's fine. That's the push and pull of that situation. You go and you smack around Kentucky. It was one of the best wins Tennessee's had in the NCAA tournament. It was a ton of fun. You can hold it over Kentucky, and that's great. Here with Vandy, they go on and they win the SEC tournament, and you look like a clown show. So it's high risk, high reward, But I feel the same with this situation. I kind of want to go to Fayetteville because the payoff, if you go there and you make it to the College World Series in their building, that will be one of the sweetest wins in the history of this program. You have won a national championship last year, and that would be one of the sweetest wins in the history of this program, with the way that Arkansas fans are so pressed by Tennessee. I mean, they talk about Tennessee more than Tennessee fans do. It would be so funny because for some reason they continue to feel some sense of superiority over Tennessee. Oh, well, we've been good for longer. Well, how many national championships do you have, Arkansas? That's 0. That's how many you have. How many does Dave Van Horn have? 0. You have not done anything, and you have nothing on Tennessee. And to go in there and be able to walk out as a team going to Omaha would be incredible. Now, it would absolutely suck to lose also. That is also an option there. And you haven't won nearly anything in Fayetteville in over a decade. But
you
still,
you were there just a couple weeks ago. So I do like the fact that there's some, it's not a new place. Like you were just there. I think there's something to that. Like you'll be a little more comfortable. You beat them with your number 2 guy. Your number 1 guy, they basically told you how they beat them, how they beat Doyle after the game, what they were doing, their approach, sitting on the fastball. And they even talked about what the data said and how he's always going to go back to the fastball after these pitches. So you can game plan around that a little bit. It comes down to executing that game plan, of course, like Doyle would have to be on. I think he's talented enough to do that. So there's, they can beat Arkansas in that super regional. I don't think that's a do or die, or like there's no hope type situation. I think Tennessee can, and I almost like the fact that if they have to go play on the road, that it would be there just because you were just there. And I think there will be some of that us against the world mentality that follows them there. But of course, you gotta go take care of business this weekend
Yeah.
before you get there and even worry about that.
Yeah, it's a very fun prospect because every ounce of the pressure will be on Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
The last 2 seasons, they have lost their regional in Fayetteville. This would be 3 in a row if they screw it up. If they make it through and they lose to Tennessee, that's probably worse than losing the regional. As far as what fans will say about
Oh
David Van
yeah,
Horn,
yeah,
at least.
because Tennessee
Uh,
fans will just they'll live on that no matter what, and we should. I mean,
yeah.
to
I
get
mean,
to Omaha, because really, we've said it the last few weeks. Just get to Omaha, and whatever happens, happens. We're not gonna
right.
be like, oh my god, he can't come through. I mean, you just won a national championship. You've had to gut it and grind it out these last few weeks, and you still made it to Omaha, something that many programs have never done. And to beat Arkansas to get there, that would be about as close as you could come to winning a national championship.
I mean, it would just be so sweet. Like, I cannot undersell that, how awesome it would be to do that. Because, I mean, you even have, like I said, Arkansas fans have this weird, they talk as if they are a superior program, even though Tennessee has dominated college baseball for the last 5 years. And in a way, I mean, it's one of the greatest runs in the history of this sport the last 5 years for Tennessee baseball. It's insane. They should be bowing down at our feet and kissing our feet. Okay. And yet they have some sense of, oh, well, when Dave Van Horn retires, we'll just take Tony Vitello. Tony Vitello is not coming anywhere near Fayetteville, Arkansas. That's absolutely, he could have, the LSU job was open and he didn't go there. Don't kid yourself. The only fan base more delusional than ours is yours. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, I just can't stand these guys, even though really not all that much has happened between Tennessee and Arkansas in baseball.
They did have that little Vitello and Van Horn had that little back and forth a couple years ago. I think when they
Yeah.
played in Knoxville, it was over some
Yes,
recruiting thing too. They were both very vague about it, but there's some animosity there. There's respect. There's mutual respect, of course. I mean, he was on Van Horn's staff, and they have a long history with a lot of guys that are there. But there's been some tense moments there between the two teams.
Oh yeah, and it would be super entertaining to see that happen. But man, if Tennessee went in there and won, they would tear that guy limb from limb. They already, I mean, a lot of fans you see after like what's happened the last couple of years, they're like, well, it's about time for Van Horn to retire. We'll go get Vitello or whatever. And man, that would be so much fun. Of course, that is completely contingent on both of these teams making it that far. It happened in baseball, or sorry, it happened in basketball with Kentucky. It's the most likely outcome here, but Arkansas has a penchant for screwing it up, and Tennessee is not what they were last year. So we'll see what happens, but it's a fun matchup that I think would be a real opportunity for Tennessee. Because, like, can you just imagine it? That very first game, you go in, and if you can get, score a couple runs in the first few innings, just the hush that would fall over that place, how nervous they would get instantly, the pressure that would fall on that team and that fan base would be frankly hilarious to watch. So I do kind of want to see it. Now, I will say, it's not exactly like Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, because the alternative with Arkansas losing their regional is that you would get to host a super regional. And that's awesome in a complete other way. And it would be a super regional against what? Kansas or Creighton, I think. Which, you're going to be favored in a super regional, go to the College World Series and get to play it in Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Like, that would be really, really sweet. But cross that again. Yeah, cross that bridge if it comes.
Got a big weekend ahead to get there.
Exactly. I like both. Almost any outcome here outside of blowing it and losing your regional, I'm at least going to have some amount of a good time.
The most Tennessee thing ever that could happen would be losing the regional and Arkansas losing theirs.
That's true.
So let's hope that's not the case when we're back here next Monday.
Last year, you were supposed to play Wake Forest in the Super, and you played Evansville. So who knows with this sport? It's the weirdest sport on planet Earth. Yeah, we'll find out what happens. But I like Tennessee's chances in this regional. Just don't get Don't get tense. Don't get tight. Just go out and win. It's okay. You're better than all these teams. We'll see what happens. So there is that. And then we'll just quickly to close out the show. A little bit of recruiting talk, a little bit of kind of odds and ends with things that happened. Tennessee had their 865 live event. And there were some fun tidbits. Savion Hyder showed up, which is really big. Number one running back in America would be a massive pickup if you could get him in the boat with Tennessee. There were some others. I'll put it this way: we're not VolQuest. I mean, you can go over there, go to 247, and really get that in the weeds, recruiting, reporting. But as we were already talking about, my biggest takeaway really was just like, I'm not excited in the same way. Like this note in past years, this note about Savion Hyder, I would be like, oh man, you've opened a door here with number one running back in America. And it is cool, but it is not the same because you're sort of like, if he actually commits and he comes, can we actually get him to stay? If he actually commits, does he actually commit, or does he just keep going on visits? Does he uncommit just the next time he gets offered a bigger paycheck? Is like, it's just the fun has been sucked out of this thing. I hate it because a huge recruiting weekend like this, it just used to be so fun. It still is fun. I still like some of the news, odds and ends news, but
I think the most frustrating thing for me, like getting Savion Hyder would be huge, and we've seen how important the running backs are in this offense, and hopefully Dylan Sampson plays well in the NFL, and Jalen Wright should have some opportunities this season with the Dolphins, and players will see that, hey, we can come from this Tennessee offense and have success in the NFL and have really big numbers in college too. I mean, look at what Dylan Sampson did last season, but the recruiting stuff is so frustrating right now because I think Tennessee's in a really tough spot where you have to be efficient with who you're taking and how much you're paying in NIL money. And I think Tennessee can afford to take big swings, just like most SEC programs at this point, or Big Ten, top Big Ten programs. But if there's always somebody more desperate out there that's going to offer more money. So whereas Georgia and Ohio State, they're, and credit to them, that's where they've built these programs. When Tennessee was screwing up in the 2010s, right, in the post-Fulmer era, that whole 10 years is still impacting Tennessee because you've still got that behind you that you're trying to overcome, that reputation. Whereas Georgia, Ohio State, they've been on solid, Alabama, of course, they've been on solid ground for so long now that when everything's even and a recruit has no previous tie to any of these schools and they just have to pick what's best, Kirby Smart can say, hey, look at this. We've won national championships. We've advanced in the playoff. Ohio State, can say the same thing. Alabama's a little weird right now because of Kalen DeBoer, but there's this strong belief still that there in Alabama for some reason, even though DeBoer hasn't quite proven it yet. They have all that they can rely on. And in Tennessee, you don't want to have to go outbid them, right? You don't want to throw up these absurd amounts of money because then that just throws everything else off, right? We've already seen it with NIL. We've seen it with the Nico situation. You had to draw a line because you didn't feel like he was worth this and you weren't going to pay him $4 million. You weren't going to get extorted, basically, to pay somebody that much money. And so you can't do that with a high school recruit that's never played, right? Like you're going to be competitive, just like Georgia and Ohio State are. But Georgia's not going to go out there and do that. We just saw with the offensive lineman that went to Miami, the 5-star, whatever his name was, right? Like that was a big NIL deal, and I'm sure he had a good relationship with the guys at Miami and stuff. But it took Miami paying him a lot more money to get him away from Georgia, and Tennessee's kind of in that weird spot too now with recruiting, and that to me is what's frustrating because Josh Heupel can do everything right. This staff can build incredible relationships. And just because of things, the sins of those before them, the Pruitts and the Butches and the Dooleys, they've got to pay a premium for these recruits. And that's just something that is not necessarily wise in every situation. And especially when it comes to high school players, because you just never know until they get on campus and until they're in your program what they're going to be. So that's the frustrating thing to me.
I said it a few shows ago. it's not exactly the same situation, but Kentucky basketball with the new coach that's just in a, they're not in that same elite spot that they used to be. They had to go out and spend $20 million, supposedly, reportedly, on a kind of middling roster, frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how good it is. But they had to, because they're not in the John Calipari heyday anymore. They're in the Mark Pope, making it to the Sweet 16 is a miracle at this point day. This is where they are. And so they got to pay $20 million for a decent roster. And Tennessee football, yeah, you made the playoff, but you have a coach who his system has gotten questioned in terms of its viability for getting you ready for the NFL. And you're still a little outside looking in terms of being truly elite, and just it's not all 100% there. And so, yeah, maybe you got to go spend $30 million, and it's not going to be world's most elite roster. If you want to, clearly, I don't think they want to do that, but they could very feasibly go and do that if Tennessee just wanted to go on a spending spree. It is sort of the situation that you're in with not just transfers, but regular recruits too. And I kind of hate that, but you gotta face reality. And I think Josh Heupel is. I think they're looking at it as realistically as they can. They have good recruiters on the staff, and that's great. But that is the situation that you find yourself in, and you got to put together the best roster that you can and try to get yourself into that postseason spot like you did last year and give yourself a chance. But yeah, I mean that's where you're at.
If you're Savion Hyder, and these are just, you just throw numbers out there, right? If Ohio State's saying we're going to give you $1 million to come here, and he comes to Tennessee, he says, I need what, 1.5? Okay, I'm going to give you 1.5. And then Peyton Lewis is there, who's already played, or Deshaun Bishop, who's played in your system, and you've seen them. You know they can play on Saturdays, and they're making, I don't know, 500,000. They're coming to you, and they're saying, well, why is that guy getting 1.5? He hasn't taken a snap in the SEC. I know he's a 5-star and all this, but he hasn't done anything. I need $1 million. I need the same thing he's getting. I mean, it can devolve into that so quickly. And it differs from player to player. Like there's nothing you can do with your culture to make it strong enough to make it immune from that. No program can. Ohio State, Georgia, there's always going to be a player that's going to be willing to push the line, and we'll leave and go find it somewhere else, or we'll sit out, or Nico, this Nico situation, whatever it was, it's not the last time that's going to happen at a big time program. So I really don't know how you manage this, and there's got to be a little grace with Heupel there, I think, for that reason when it comes to some of these recruiting and transfers. Like we talked about it with the wide receivers, that there just wasn't anybody out there good enough to pay. Like you weren't going to go pay somebody more as a transfer that's the same as Caleb Webb when you weren't willing to pay Caleb Webb to stay. So, I mean, it's stuff like that there's too many variables that now coaches have to deal with. It's frustrating. Like you can't just go build the best roster now. You've got to, build the best roster while keeping everybody else on the roster happy because of what everybody's getting paid.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. Outside looking in, just where the sport is at the moment. Maybe some of the things coming down could make things better. The house settlement and all this stuff, but I'll believe it when I see it finally.
They need some rookie salary cap scales like they do in the NFL for recruits coming out of high school. That's what you need, is some guardrails. The unfortunate thing is that there's no draft process, and the recruiting rankings, you can't use that because that's subjective, and that's really, that's susceptible to some corruption easily. You can manipulate that however you want, so you can't use that. So there really is no way to scale it based on talent, but they need some guardrail like that. Like coming out of high school, you can't make but this much. But that gets into some antitrust stuff that's way above my head that probably is not feasible.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so complicated. I kind of wanted to end with just a little, basically just mentioning that Zakai Ziegler suing for a 5th year. And I want to talk about it, but I don't, because I want to see if he's granted an injunction. I want to see if this house settlement comes down. Like, there's just so much in this conversation that has to happen for almost anything to happen. And so there's just almost not that much to say. It's all very interesting for me right now, and just my own personal sensibilities. All this stuff is so fascinating, and I know so many people absolutely hate it. It makes a lot of people sick. It's just like, oh, the sport that we knew is gone, and all this stuff is so corrupt. I'm not saying you're totally wrong or anything. I'm just kind of on pins and needles to see how all this turns out, because like the implications, if you just broadly open the door for a fifth or maybe sixth year for guys, and they could, the potential that's on the table is that they could retroactively go back and grant guys eligibility. You know what's going to happen? I don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but it's going to be crazy. It's what's going to happen. The entire thing is going to be insane to watch unfold. So it's almost not worth talking about at this point.
Yeah, only because we have absolutely no idea where it's going to go. Like there is no
Right.
oh
There's almost no point in talking about it
yeah,
without
like
anything solid.
there's a feeling that this is what's going to happen, or signs point to it. Like there's none of that. Like we truly have no clue how any of this is going to play out, and uh, you're right. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I struggle a little bit, just like kind of trying to look at it objectively, like why, how, where would it stop then? If it's 5 years, why not
Right.
6? Why not 7? Why not 8? Like what?
Mhm.
Who's to say?
I mean, you
what?
can a regular student, if you want to view it through this lens, a regular student can go to college indefinitely.
Yeah.
And would you just say, well, he's in med school, so he gets to play for the basketball team for 12 years? You
Fifth
know?
master's degree. I mean, anything, right? Like
Exactly.
you can do whatever. Yeah.
I mean, you can go forever. And yeah, it's opening up an interesting door. But as far as that one goes, what should really happen is just to have the NCAA cap it. Just go, everybody gets 6 years. No more red shirts, no more gray shirts. No, none of this nonsense. Just 6 years. You just get 6 years. That's it.
5 would be the most reasonable, honestly, just across
5.
the board. But you're right. With 5, you would still have to have red shirts because medical.
Right.
Right. So
Exactly.
I don't know. It is fascinating. I don't know where it will end or how it will turn out. But what I would bet on, and this is no inside information, no inkling of how this is going to turn out, just gut feeling, is that Zakai Ziegler will probably not get a chance to play for Tennessee again, because that's typically how this goes. Yeah. Just the bad luck of it. He should. To me, with the Diego Pavia thing, it seems pretty open and shut.
He has a more compelling, based on what the judges have said in the given cases, he has a more compelling case than Alberto Osuna.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's very different, but like Zakai, the earning potential with Zakai Ziegler, what would he make if he transferred from Tennessee this year? $4 million probably. If he transferred out?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. He would be probably the most valuable dude on the transfer market instantly, especially now after everybody's already kind of been snatched up. But
the one thing too is like we have seen guys like John Campbell was in college for 7 years. I know he was hurt for part of those times, and I know there's COVID years that came in and all this stuff. And then like a guy like Kamal Hadden only got to play 3 years of college football because of the way that the COVID thing turned out and his team not having a season and all this stupid stuff. So there's just so much variance through all this. It's like, why can't a guy who's done everything right get the extra year? And I know it's not. Right. I know that's not what it's based on. I know that has
so dumb,
no legal precedent to do it on merit or anything like that. But it really is absurd when you look at how crazy this has been, where guys are 25 years old finishing up college and they've played 7 years, and I don't know. It's just, it makes no sense. None of it.
Well, I'm hoping that he gets the same fate as Diego Pavia, and I hope that this house settlement comes through and something happens there, because I just want to see something happen and at least see a little bit of justice for some of these guys. Yeah, Sam says there have been 26 and 27-year-olds playing. Sometimes it's crazy to deny him a 5th year. Yeah. And Rhonda really gets to the point. She says they can't agree on anything, the NCAA and the conferences. Yeah. And they probably never will until the conferences actually break away from the NCAA. I think that's how this ends. The actual form that takes, your guess is as good as mine, but yeah, we'll see. I think that's it. Anything else for the folks at home, Zach?
That should do it. Let's hope we're talking about Tennessee hosting a super regional next Monday.
I really hope so. And potentially Tennessee could be playing that night on Monday night. We'll obviously play that by ear if that ends up happening. I would say I certainly hope not. I hope that we are having our regular show with no baseball game conflict, talking about Tennessee. Honestly, talking about Tennessee hosting a super regional because Arkansas screwed the pooch. That would be a ton of fun. So, Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Eric, Rhonda, Sam, Felicia, Lowell. We appreciate every single one of you. We could not do the show without you. Seriously. That's been the Big Orange Podcast. All right. Go Vols. Let's go win a super wait. Let's go win a regional. Also a super regional. Let's do
Lady
both.
Vols can go win a super regional in softball.
Yes. And oh my gosh, the Lady Vols beating that superhuman pitcher from Nebraska. What a win to make it to the College World Series. Absolute best of luck to Lady Vols softball. That's awesome. Go and win us a national title finally for the weeklies. Let's do it. Now that is actually it. Thank you for watching. We will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.